What if we could learn from outstanding leaders in business, sports, and education from some of the best voices in corporate America? Lighting the Path is a series of interviews with industry leaders whose stories highlight strategies that build purpose-driven cultures, engage and retain top talent, develop drivers that create high-performance teams, and connect people to the vision of your company. Join us to hear from game-changing, talented leaders whose paths make a difference at work and at home.
But what stops us from being present? What stops us? You're not the first person. You just had to bring up this concept, but you have a unique perspective on things because of your journey. What have you noticed that stops people from living, and being able to maximize all that today has for them? Other than just, you said distraction.
Yeah, for sure. Not having a plan is a huge way to do that. So I've become a huge fan of time blocking. I think is a great way to give ourselves the gift of knowing what we're doing with our time. And the reason for that's been born out of tremendous struggles for me when I was not at the office. So when I'm at my office, my day is rigidly scheduled all day. I know exactly what I'm doing for the whole day.
And what I love about it, I've not been in your office. My guess is you're not the one who's scheduling all the appointments. You have a team of people who are booking your time, and you're looking up and they're driving your calendar, right?
Oh man, I'm so thankful for that. I have the best team of schedulers, and if I had to do that, we kind of have a rule in our office that they don't talk about the clinical part of it, and I don't talk about the scheduling part of it, and we all get along really, really well.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be great if you had a team of people scheduling your private life, your personal life, like you do for your office, your career life?
It would be amazing. And if we don't, but I think if we don't have times blocked, if we don't schedule our day around goals, then I think the first half of the title of my book is The False Sense of Urgency. And I think that is what pulls us away from the now more than anything. So there are true urgencies in our lives. If there's a diagnosis that happens, that can be an urgency. If we get a phone call and something's happened to a loved one or somebody needs us right away, that's a true urgency. But we get paralyzed by the false sense of urgency. And that's those things that run around in our mind that try to vie for our attention and pull us away from the now. That's the kind of thing that on a Sunday afternoon, when you have a chance to rest and maybe do some reading, maybe take a nap, do some different things like that, it's the thing that says, no, I need to be doing this, I need to be doing that, I need to be doing all these things that aren't necessarily productive or beneficial, but your mind plays tricks on you, trying to convince you that you need to be doing all these things. Yeah,
I love that from the standpoint of the example that you're bringing up is this false sense of urgency. We've got this so-called, American work ethic, goes back to the Puritan days of work ethic, and we're not supposed to get a sense of self-worth out of what we do. Psychologists teach us that. Bible teaches us that. The challenge we have are human beings, and because of that, we have a tendency to get a sense of self-worth out of what we do. And so we're fighting that battle all the time. And the issue that we run into is that if we aren't busy, I call it the blurriness of busyness. If we're not busy, and I'm wrestling with that right now, it's giving myself permission to literally chill for an hour, to step away and chill. Because somebody told me the other day, the space Eric, you and I play, and we're paid for our creativity. And what happens is if we don't create blocks of quiet time to allow that creativity muscle, then what happens is it shrinks, doesn't it? And I think as leaders, which we have a lot of leaders or people who aspire to be leaders listening in, is that the greatest value that you can have for your team is whenever you can take a step back, clear the mind, and to be able to take a look and see what's happening, so that the steps you take now are not busy steps. They're not urgent steps. They're productive steps to battle urgent. to be able to battle those high regards, the high recharge. That's what I'm hearing you talk about.
That is so well said, Mike. I think one of the biggest things that we're failing at as leaders is we're not taking care of ourselves. If we're not taking care of ourselves, I have a good friend who talks about, and there's a lot of talk in the space about being selfish, a little bit selfish so that we can be selfless. Mm-hmm. And he really taught me that, my friend Stan. And Stan says, Eric, you got to take care of you, or else you can't take care of anybody else. So I think we have to find some times where our brains can idle a little bit. We were designed for that. We weren't designed to be constantly stimulated. We weren't designed to, every time our mind has to wander a little bit, we feel like we need to pick up our phones and watch Instagram videos or check social media or check email or all those kind of things. Mm-hmm. We used to have to sit in those quiet times at the line at the grocery store, at the stoplight, different times like that. We could actually let our mind just catch up with us a little bit. Yeah. And I think we're missing that a lot right now. Gotcha.
If anybody's listened to other interviews I've done, I've tended to bring this quote up often because it's a center quote of the very first professional speaker that I heard speak was Dennis Waitley, and I was in my 20s. If you can tell from the gray hair, I'm not in my 20s. For those who are listening in, I wish I hadn't said that. You may have thought I was in my 20s. But Dennis Waitley was a world-renowned speaker up there. He worked with the Olympic Committee, helping to raise productivity. He flew with the Blue Angels as part of their flight team. And he made a statement and asked a question: is what you're doing tension relieving, or is it goal achieving? Is it tension relieving, or is it goal achieving? And I have to tell you, that's stuck. And when I can bring up and measure myself with what I'm doing right now, is it relieving tension? And like yesterday afternoon, I kept wanting to set up a new expense reporting software thing because I'm going to be doing some more traveling. I need a better tool. And at the end of the day, I ended up getting my system. Went and found one. We installed it. And when I finished, I had such a sense of satisfaction. But when I measured, I had to go back and ask myself the question: is it goal achieving, or was it just tension relieving? And in that particular case, it was goal achieving because I'm heading out next week. I'm going to be on the road for 4 days for a client, and I've got some monies that I'm having to spend that I'll get reimbursed on. And my goal is, to run a profitable business, and my goal is to become more efficient so that I can become more effective. It's my goal. Now, when I applied to that story, that situation, that became productive. But if my job is to go and look for, if I need to get new business on the books right now, if that's what I'm supposed to be doing, that's important. But it goes back into where we first started this. Is it urgent for me to do that right now? Or could I have done that on Saturday, whenever my prospects are not in the office, and make a decision? Both are important, but we have to weigh that out and put that in place. And especially with the example you're giving as far as the social media, I've discovered Reels. I don't know about you, because I'm part of it is I'm studying them because I'm now posting Reels, and so I'm having fun with that. And I think it's part of the brand. But I found myself yesterday afternoon, I wasted an hour chasing Reels.
It is easy to do.
Easy to do. And when I finished with that, I went, so I had to ask myself the question: what's the most productive thing I can do right now? And I knew I had this project coming up next week, and that's what snapped in. I called Sean Lee, got on the telephone, snapped out of it. But the problem is do you have tools and resources to step out from a productivity standpoint? And so I love what we're talking about here. We talked about distraction, being able to measure that. We've talked about this imposter syndrome. Is there something that you do to coach the clients you work with as we wrap up on comparison? What to be aware of, what to watch out for, and when we fall into the trap of comparison, how do we spin out of it?
Yeah, let's keep going with that on social media, what you were talking about. I think we've created this false sense of what is achievable. So when we look at social media, there's a danger to think that I can have that person's car, like they post a picture of their Jeep with the top down and they're driving. So I can have that person's Jeep. I can have that person's vacation. I can have that person's pool. I can have that person's kids' achievements. I can look like that person, but I can have that person's wife. And you start to look at all these different things and you have this idealized thing and you.
So we got the recording going. And so Betty, look for this and then just chop out and find out where the best place to go in front of this then.
So I think the danger is that we think that this exists. We think that there is a way to have all of these things. And then when we can't have all of these things, we get discontent. The reality is behind every one of those posts, every one of those people has stuff going on in their lives. They all have garbage behind the fences that looks so nice. Against is an idealized perfect that someone has polished and put out there. We don't see the rest of the crap. We all have crap. We all have stuff. So that's a big thing to realize. No one has a perfect life. People have snippets that we maybe want to emulate, and we can think, okay, what are some things I can do to emulate that? But just to realize that if you switch places with somebody, you got to switch everything. And the more the curtain gets pulled back, even those, I'm sure you've had this, Mike, when you've talked with people that you think have it all figured out, they don't. They have stuff going on in their lives too. So I think that awareness is a huge piece of it. And then again, defining success, figuring out where you want to go with your life, and then figuring out what steps can you take specific for you to try to get there. How can you learn to be more present in your life? How can you learn to be less distracted in your life? Because every moment you spend comparing is a moment you can't spend working on your life or your impact.
Yeah. And what I found with what you're making me think about right now, Eric, is that comparison comes into play. It has a tendency to be driven by ego. I found most of the time there's an ego. So what happens is if you have your purpose and you have your ego, we have both of those. The challenge is sometimes our ego overshadows our purpose and it blurs our purpose. And what you're describing here is being able to be reflective enough and recognize that, and really watch out for. And I love this because a friend of mine told me the same thing we're talking when they said you can't covet that and just get that. You can't say, well, I'm going to carve that out. I want that. Because if you get that, you get all the junk that goes with it. And you know what that junk is. You know what your junk is. You know what their junk is.
Yes.
Then the other part from a comparison standpoint is that, there's a sense of are you pursuing, or is there an interest that you have? Is there desires that you have that literally will go against what I just got through watching some Simon Sinek stuff, who was the sort of the early adopter of know your why. And you've alluded to that a couple of times in our conversation. Know what your purpose is, know what your why, because the more clarity you have on that, and the more you can take steps toward that, you accomplish more, you achieve more, you accumulate more, you do whatever it is you're looking for, because you're moving in the direction that's of high importance to you. Not you're getting rid of the word should. I should have done that, or I should have this. And that's my new thing I'm going to be talking about next month is the word should.
Yes.
And impact on it. So I really enjoyed getting a chance to talk to you about this topic. What's the best way for people to reach out to you if they want to have follow-up conversations with you or really hear more about what you're talking about?
Sure. Let me piggyback just a little bit first on what you said about the word should. I always laugh when people say that because my dad told me very early on, my dad was also a dentist. I got to practice with him for a while. And one of his phrases was, don't ever should on yourself. because it gets really messy.
It does.
So
It does.
I've definitely lived by that. But if people want to get a hold of me, the easiest place to find me, kind of my home base, is my website, just ericrecker.com. And from there, I have a blog. I'm a live from the journey kind of guy, share from the journey kind of guy. So I'm pretty self-disclosing and vulnerable in my blog posts. So hopefully there's some good information for people there. Also information on how to set up a consultation to talk about speaking or coaching. I'd love to have those conversations. Information about the book, and then the usual social media channels: Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
I love it. Super. Well, I hope this isn't offensive to you, but I don't like the fact that dentists have practices. I really prefer them not be practicing. That's just the way I look at my dentist. So,
we just had that, Mike. We just had that conversation with somebody else the other day. Somebody said, when are you ever going to quit practicing? And I said, tell me more about that. He says, well, I think a dentist, when they get out of school, should have everything figured out. I said, well, you're going to get disappointed.
You've been very disappointed, because it's all medicine it's not trial and error, but it's, see what you can do. Comparison. It is comparison. It's learning as you go through it. So, Eric, thank you so much for your heart and this mission that you're on to impact people with both your talent and gift as a dentist, and I think even more so with your heart and your mind. The challenge you bring up is one that's needed with all this chaotic environment we're in, where people are trying to figure out, what's the future look like, and how the future looks like. It's a series of todays.
Yes,
it's a series of today. So, anyway, I wish you great success in your journey. Thanks so much for sharing.
And thanks for having me, Mike. I wish you all the best as well.
Thanks for joining us today on Lighting the Path, Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders. If anything in this podcast speaks to you, if I've challenged you, or if you want to spend time digging into this subject a little deeper, or if you disagree with me, reach out. My contact information is on our website, lightingthepath.net, or email me at mike@mikelejeune.com. Also, look for me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect our networks. Keep lighting the path for those who choose to follow you. It's more than a responsibility. It's an honor.